Hi everybody, welcome to week 7. This week we're going to focus on facial hair. There are lots of different ways that one can create prosthetic facial hair for the stage. You can certainly buy them. They come in both synthetic and real human hair. And much like the lace front wigs that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, these take the hair either human or synthetic, and they weave it into this beautiful net. And when you put it on your face, you can usually get a pretty convincing mustache, right? This mustache is real human hair. This beard, I have this long goatee here, also has a lace front, a lace to it where the hair has been individually applied. And that also, once you use like a spirit gum adhesive, which is, you have little bottles of spirit gum in your kit. This is a matte adhesive that is used as a glue to apply any kind of prosthetics, either facial or facial hair or otherwise, to your skin. Usually, most people don't have major reactions to spirit gum. Where we start to run into trouble with adhesives is using liquid latex. So the process that we're going to work on this week does involve using liquid latex. If for some reason you are allergic to liquid latex or notice that the latex is reacting in a negative way to your skin, please stop immediately. And make sure you contact me. I have other ways for us to move forward if you are allergic to latex. But latex is probably the easiest way. So all of these different prosthetic mustaches are available. You can get them at your local makeup store or online at Theatrical Resources. But if you don't have those options, another great way for us to build prosthetic facial hair is using crepe hair. And each of your packets, I provided you with your preferred color of, it's called wool crepe hair. And so essentially this is not wool, this is a poly, but it certainly does create a lovely, slightly realistic look. This is kind of like your budget facial hair. But this is a great exercise for you. Crepe hair, as I said, comes in a braid, and it comes kind of kinky and comes a little curly. It can be pressed out, so it can be flattened and straightened, or you can use it as is, where it has a little bit of curl to it, like a lot of facial hair does. So the first thing we want to do is we want to choose a piece of research, right, to base our design on. I have used this fashionable folks book, Hairstyles from the 1840s to 1900. This is a great period resource with lots of pictures of different people from, this is the Victorian era, obviously. And I have chosen good old Moses Hanson. He lived around the latter half of the 19th century. And I really like this sort of curled up at the end, kind of bushy mustache. So this is the piece of research that I'm using. I'm going to forego, for the sake of time, his goatee. And so as you're choosing and designing your facial hair this week, I would ask that you avoid full beards or anything with a tremendous amount of length, kind of like this guy and his fabulous mutton chops. Just because full beards, really long hair, it takes not only an extraordinary amount of materials, but it also takes a lot of time. And I want to be mindful of your time commitment in this class. So great ideas for this project would be a mustache, perhaps a set of longer sideburns. Maybe you want to do some bushy eyebrows. Maybe you want to do a goatee, that would be fine. But just try not to overextend your design abilities this week, because it will take a lot of time and resources. So I'm going to use good old Moses Hanson. And so from this, I took my personal makeup chart, and I just drew out the size and scale of the mustache that I am interested in creating. Okay? So having these two things in mind, I'm going to go back, and you can either create your facial hair on yourself, or you can use your cosmetology head. The choice is yours this week, so whichever you prefer. I'm going to use the cosmetology head just so that I can talk and explain the process to you a little bit easier. So the first thing we want to do when we're thinking about creating this facial hair is think about the scale and the size, right? So I just took a piece of printer paper and I started drawing it out and cutting and getting myself uh, a sample that I can see just size and scale. That seems about right. It's not quite touching the nose and it's over the lip, so we're in a good place. And then you want to use your net. Once you've decided on your size and scale, I've given you a piece of netting here, and this looks like bridal netting, right? This is tulle. Essentially, it's used for the most part either to make crinolines or bridal veils, but it's also really helpful for us to use as a base when creating our facial hair. And so I am going to jump forward here. I've just cut my pattern out of a piece of net. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect because all of this is going to get covered by the crepe hair. So I am just going to use a little bit of Scotch tape here. You can certainly use latex to apply it, but I like to use Scotch tape just in case I want to move it around, just to get that mustache right about where you want it, okay? And again, you would do this on your own face or your cosmetology head. So I have the basic shape of the mustache that I'm after, right? The tools that I'm going to use when I'm creating this facial hair, I'm going to use my smaller brush from the makeup kit, but I'm not going to use the brush. You don't ever want to use your makeup brushes to apply liquid latex because it will get gummy and it will destroy your brush. However, the butt end of it is a great tool for applying latex and facial hair to your prosthetic. I also have some toothpicks handy because those are great for fine detail work. I also like to use plastic cutlery, like plastic knives. Those are great things that can clean off easily. And if they get gummed up, it's not the end of the world. Okay? So I'm going to set this aside and we're just going to look at our crepe hair. As I said before, crepe hair comes in different colors and it comes in this kinky braid. Used as is, it creates a very kind of curly facial hair type of texture, but some facial hair obviously is very straight. So luckily you can, with a medium iron, you can straighten this out. I'll show you here. You just kind of grab it and I'm going to pull, oops, and I'm just going to add a little bit of steam and go over it like so. And you can see how it's straightening out. And the more you do it, you know, the straighter it will get, right? So again, about medium, you can also, if you're nervous about burning your hair, you can use a cloth to cover it as you're pressing, but I think it should be okay on medium heat, and you'll get a nice flat hair if you choose. So I am going to blend. Most of you, I think maybe if you asked me for medium brown, I may have given you 2 different browns because I think one of the best ways of creating a convincing prosthetic facial hair is by blending your colors to get both highlights and lowlights, just like when we paint our face, okay? My hair in particular has a lot of red in it, so I've pulled a little bit of auburn and the dark brown. So these are the 2 that I'm going to use. And I don't need much. I don't need a lot of length for the mustache that we're going to create. So I certainly want to start longer because we can always cut it down, but I don't need anything as long as this. So for this mustache, I'm going to start with probably like maybe 1.5 inches here of crepe hair. So I'm going to cut that, and I'm just going to start kind of pulling it apart, right? Like so. And just so that I have some available hairs, individual hairs here, okay? And the same with the auburn, right? So I'm just creating my palette. And you could use a little bit of blonde, you could put a little gray in there. My hair, of course, gets grayer as the years go on. So the first thing is, once you have your hair in the texture that you like it and in the length that is appropriate for your piece, you want to take your liquid latex, which comes in this little bottle in your kit, right? And you can just start it has a little brush in there, right? So you can use this brush. Let's see if I can make sure I get it in the camera. And I just want to start by kind of applying a thin layer here over the mustache just to kind of get it to the face, right? Just get it tacked down to the face. Okay. And as that starts to dry, we want to think about building our pieces from the bottom up, meaning that your hair is going to lay over itself from the lip and then there will be another layer that will be on top of that, on top of that, on top of that. That's the best way to think about building your facial hair, is from the bottom up, so that your layers are laying over each other, okay? And the easiest thing to do, just as I start to use latex here, I'm going to kind of put another layer here, just kind of, and this does, once it dries, it absolutely will peel away, and you can cut it away. Put a little bit more here, like so. And I will promise you that the more time you take in doing this and the more careful you are, the more convincing your prosthetic will be, okay? So using the butt end of my brush here, I'm just gonna kind of spread some of this out, right? You don't wanna get this in your mouth. Luckily, my cosmetology head doesn't have much to say about it. And each time I pull away, I'm gonna just wipe it using my cloth. So I'm gonna start just by putting a layer of these hairs, right, just down on the end. See, already we're pretty long here. You want to think about the way that the facial hair is going to grow. I don't think I need I'm going to cut my hair in half because I think I can use about half that length and get it. Doesn't take a lot to create this, that's for sure. Okay. I'm just going to kind of lay these hairs in, and again, the longer you take with this, the finer work that you use, and see, the hair will start to get stuck in that. Switch to a toothpick. Just laying those hairs in one by one, blend in a little bit of auburn in here, right? Lay it in there like so. Creating your first layer that goes all the way across. Just got to be patient and let it dry as you move forward. You don't want to go super heavy with this. Just want to take your time and just kind of press that in, letting the latex dry to the hair. I'm going to move kind of fast just so the tutorial doesn't take forever. Looks like I need a little more latex. And you can just use the end of your brush or your toothpick to lay this in, right? Just add a little bit more. If it's not quite sticking, don't be afraid just to add a little bit more latex on top of there. And as it starts to dry, it'll hold down. Kind of getting hair everywhere. Doesn't look real pretty right now, but as we move forward, you'll start to see. Like so. Lay a little bit more hair in there, like so. Again, if you can see the latex on top of where you're applying, it's okay, because we're going to add another layer of hair once this is complete. Okay, and so we just keep moving forward. So just kind of letting that live in there. Gotta be careful, don't twirl it too much like I did or you'll start pulling your hair off. It can be tricky, so patience is definitely a virtue with this project, okay? So we're gonna let that dry, or at least dry-ish, and then we'll come back and we'll add another layer. Okay. So once we start seeing that this is no longer tacky, it's still a little wet, but I sped up our drying process with a hair dryer. That's super helpful. And once it's no longer sticky to the touch, you can go ahead and add your next layer, right? So blending in using some latex, I'm just gonna slowly start adding another layer on top, like so. And then carefully adding some more hair right on top, right? Like so. Add a little little bit of red in there just to give us some variation. Again, using your latex sparingly. You don't want to have lots of glops of latex. You want it to be pretty fine, just enough to catch that hair and hold it down. That hair's kind of long, but we're going to trim it up, so no problem. It looks a little bit of a mess right now, but I promise you when we're done, it's going to be pretty snazzy. Again, just dotting some more latex in there, wiping my brush, the end of my brush there, and then laying a little more hair in. Again, I'm going a little fast and I'm probably using more hair than I should be, but that's okay. You get the idea. Again, the more time you take, the better your piece will be, okay? So as I continue to build all of this up, the last layer, I'm actually want to use a double length, right? So I'm gonna cut the length of my hair, and as I add this last layer, I want to, use our cute toothpick here. I'm gonna go ahead and layer in some more latex. You can actually also do this with spirit gum. When you do a crepe hair beard with spirit gum, generally it's not savable. Like this, you should be able to save it and use it. For the last layer, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna use double the length, and I'm going to apply it in the middle. I'm gonna use the middle of the hair to apply here so that we get a nice fold over. Right? And that's really going to help us mask that latex business, okay? So it's going to look pretty weird for a while, but move forward. Again, you know, the more you blend your hair, the more convincing it's going to look. So take the time to really get your highlights and lowlights if you choose in there. Again, I'm going a little fast just for the sake of our video. Let's see here. We're gonna let all that dry. So it's looking again like my cosmetology head has a mouthful of hair, but you can see this top layer, it's gonna fold over and it'll really help to disguise our line of latex. So add a little more hair. So, again, thinner is always better. Taking your time using a smaller amount of hair than I am is going to yield better results for sure. So allow that, oops, get that to stick down. You can see I'm not using a ton of latex. The more latex you end up using, the chunkier it is and the harder it's going to be to get a convincing blend on your hair. So I'm going to add a little more latex here on the end, a little more hair, like so, okay. Just let that dry. Again, using the lower setting on the hair dryer. I'll just give it a little bit of a blast with some air and heat to help set that. Oops. Losing my hair here. So once your top layer has finally set, right, mine is still a little bit wet, you can use a little comb to start pulling it down just to see if it's actually starting to look like what you want it to look like, right? And you can start to see that this has a pretty nice clean top here, right? By combing over, we're going to get a nice clean build there. So I'm just going to take a little hairspray. I'm going to just spritz this down, right? You can also certainly add water if you want. And I'm just going to use a fine comb and start just combing this into the lower hairs. And don't worry, we're going to have time to fix all that sort of snarly stuff on the end. Again, you just want to give your mustache or your prosthetic time to dry so that you really have a nice, convincing line there. So we're going to let this dry completely, and then we'll come back and we'll trim our hairpiece so that it doesn't look like a mouthful of hair. Okay, so we have a pretty clean fold over here now. You can see where I've taken that hair that was sort of standing straight up and I've combed it over. And now we're starting to see the mustache take shape. I've used a finer comb here, some hairspray, and a hair dryer just to kind of get it to lay down. And you can continue to finesse this as you see fit. Now, I can already see that as we're starting to think about the shape that we're after, this little curled up end, certainly it isn't covering the lip, it's pretty neat and tidy. I can start taking my scissors and I think I want to leave some significant end on here so I can get a decent curl, but I'm going to go ahead and cut away a good deal of this hair that is no longer necessary, right? We know that it's not going to cover our mouth that way, right? I'm just using craft scissors. Certainly if you have smaller scissors, that's helpful to get that fine tune on your facial hair. I'm just going to use my hair dryer to blow this off. Okay. And then you just want to continue sort of fine-tuning your hair by cutting some of these things off here and giving it a little bit of shape, right? You can start to see it's taking its shape. We're not quite there, but again, gently combing it down, adding a little bit of hairspray to help keep that shape, right? And slowly starting to finesse your hair, like so. If it's too thick or too bushy, feel free to comb it out. I'm going to grab a smaller pair of scissors here. Just so that I can really get into those cracks and crevices and cut some of that away. So, obviously you want to, if you're doing this on yourself, you want to keep your mouth closed because you don't want all those tiny little hairs in your mouth, right? So as it starts to take shape and you're feeling pretty good about the length, certainly you want to dry. So once you're feeling good about your prosthetic being dry enough and it's within the ballpark of your shape, and you know that you've got a nice dry base, I'm actually going to take my finger and just peel this away, and I'm going to take it off of my hip. See, we got a little bit of residue there, but it's going to be a little easier for me once I clean this off here. To shape this, you can certainly use your scissors and start cutting away some of that on the top that may not be totally perfect or super clean. It'll just cut right away, making some nice clean edges for you, right? I can take my piece of tape off of there too. There we go. You can start to see that as I flip it over, I've got some pretty long hairs underneath here that I'm going to go ahead and cut away. Let me just move this head out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and cut underneath here just to give it some more shape and keep it away from the lip, right? So from both sides, you can start working your prosthetic mustache. Again, mine doesn't have, it's super bushy. Wipe off my face here. We'll just put this back on. And you can either use latex or spirit gum just to kind of put your mustache back on the head. And as you start to finesse it, you know, again, using the comb, you can use either mustache wax or derma wax. You have the nose and scar wax in your kit. This can be tricky stuff to work with, but if you just use a little bit of this and you warm it up in your finger and you really get it working, so that it's not super chunky, you can actually use this as a bit of a mustache wax. Just don't want to use a ton of it, so that as I start thinking about this being turned up, right, and working, and it's going to take some time for you to work your piece into submission, right, but be patient and know that it will come. So once you feel like you have a pretty good shape and you want to continue styling, I think I can do a little bit more trimming, and I certainly want to start styling these up. I'm going to go ahead and use my spirit gum to reapply this. Again, you have spirit gum in your kit, um, so you can feel free to use that. And the way you use spirit gum, we just want to put a little bit on your skin in the area that you want to stick, like so. Okay, and you want to put a little bit on the prosthetic that you want to stick. So we see the back side here. I'm just not going to put a ton, but just a little bit here. We're going to let these dry, or not dry, but we want them to get to the point where they're tacky or sticky to the touch, right? So as this sets, you can feel it with your finger, like it's not quite there. But as soon as it is tacky to the touch, these two will bond together really easily, right? So I'm just going to put mine on there for the sake of time. And then I'm just going to take this opportunity to start styling my mustache and fine-tuning the style. Okay, so I've taken this opportunity to just fine-tune my mustache and really get it to the length and style that I am hoping for. Certainly, all hair products, anything like gels or hairsprays, those are great ways to keep your facial hair, in the style that you wish. I used some of this Suave Maxi Hold, or Aquanet type hairsprays, those heavy maxi holds. Again, I use the Derma wax to kind of turn up the ends. I probably could get a little bit tighter with my curl if I used an actual mustache wax, which is available at your local pharmacy. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns or clarifications. I'm more than happy to help you plan out your facial hair. So be creative. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. Have a great week.